I've always had a special fascination with antiques. Items that carry the breath and stories of time. In 2015, I was living alone in a small apartment in the Old Araby area, near the French Quarter, New Orleans, Louisiana. This city is famous for its long history, old architecture, and countless antique shops, where I often spent hours wandering, searching for unique items. One afternoon, I stopped by a small, dusty antique shop on a less trafficked street. The shop was packed with old, dusty items, creating a stuffy, mysterious atmosphere. While examining an old wooden table, I accidentally saw it, a large full-length mirror, propped against the wall in a hidden corner, covered in dust. The mirror had an intricately carved wooden frame, dark wood, faded with time. The glass was slightly murky, and seemed a bit warped in places. There was a strange pull emanating from it, an indescribable urge that made me walk closer. I wiped the dust off the mirror's surface and looked into it. My reflection appeared clearly. My hair, face, the clothes I was wearing. Everything was normal. I smiled at the shopkeeper, asking for the price. The price was a bit high for what I intended to spend, and the shopkeeper just said it was a very old mirror, its origin unknown, but there was something about this mirror that I couldn't take my eyes off. Finally, I decided to buy it. Getting the mirror back to my apartment was quite a struggle, but I finally managed to place it where I wanted, on the wall in the living room, opposite the entrance, where it could reflect light and make the room seem more spacious. I stepped back, admiring it. It looked perfect there, an antique touch in my modern apartment. I walked closer, looking into the mirror again, adjusting my hair, and then, it happened. In the mirror, my reflection suddenly vanished. Instead, I saw a completely different scene. Not my apartment. It was a dark room, looking old and dirty, and in the mirror, I didn't see myself, but a face. The face of a man. His eyes wide with terror. His mouth gaping open as if trying to scream, but no sound came out. Dim light shone in from somewhere, highlighting his pale, sweaty face. That horrifying moment lasted only 1 or 2 seconds. Then, the scene vanished, and my own reflection returned, looking back at me with utter shock. I backed away, my heart pounding wildly. What just happened? I rubbed my eyes, staring at the mirror. Only my image was there, as normal as ever. I thought I was hallucinating, tired, or the light was playing tricks. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself it wasn't real. But the image of that terrified face, it was too clear, too real to be imagination. A cold, chilling feeling began to creep into my apartment. The first incident with the mirror was shocking, but I tried to push it out of my mind. I told myself it was just a one-time thing, a strange coincidence. However, the feeling of unease lingered every time I walked past the mirror. Then, it happened again. A few days later, as I was getting ready to go out, I stopped in front of the mirror to check my outfit. When I looked in, my reflection disappeared, and another scene appeared. This time it was a woman. She was in a kitchen. The furniture looked old. Her face was pale. Her hands were raised as if in defense, and her eyes looked upwards in utter terror. Just a second, then the image vanished, replaced by my reflection, still standing there, frozen. From then on, the terrifying images in the mirror began to appear more frequently. There was no clear pattern. Sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening, sometimes it was the man's image, sometimes the woman's, sometimes someone else I hadn't seen before. Each appearance was a horrifying moment. I saw a bare foot struggling in water, fingers gripping something out of sight, I saw a face being slammed against a floor. A soundless groan seeming to echo from the glass. I saw someone backing away in a dark hallway. Their face turned towards the mirror. Their eyes wide with horror seeing something approaching. These images only lasted a few seconds. Without sound, but they were incredibly vivid and detailed. I could see the bloodstains on clothes. The light glinting on a knife blade. The sheer despair in the victim's eyes. They were always the final moments. As life was being taken away, my fear increased exponentially. I started avoiding looking at the mirror. I only used other smaller mirrors in the apartment. But I knew it was still there, standing in the living room. And any time I looked into it, I could see another horrifying death. The lack of sleep and stress left me almost exhausted. I felt I was being haunted. Not by a ghost, but by death itself. Trapped within that glass, the haunting didn't stop at silent images. The mirror seemed to be getting stronger. And the barrier between its world and mine was slowly blurring. I started hearing sounds when the death images appeared in the mirror. At first, they were very faint, easily mistaken for noises from outside. Rustling, light impacts, weak gasping, but gradually, they became clearer. A muffled scream, the sound of desperate struggling, the sound of something being hit hard. These sounds didn't just echo from the mirror, but seemed to resonate from all over the room, as if the space around me was replaying that very moment. The atmosphere around the mirror also changed. It became unusually cold, a bone-chilling cold unrelated to the room temperature. Sometimes, I even smelled unpleasant odors wafting through the air, the smell of blood, dampness, rusty metal, or something decaying. The mirror also changed in a subtle way. When the death images appeared, the surface of the mirror seemed to become darker, deeper, as if it were a portal to some abyss filled with pain. I tried covering the mirror with a thick sheet, hoping to block those terrifying images and sounds. Covering the mirror seemed effective visually. The images no longer appeared on the covered surface. But the sounds, the feeling of presence, still remained, echoing from behind the sheet. As if the thing inside the mirror was still there. Still active, only I couldn't see it anymore. I didn't dare get rid of the mirror. Something held me back. A strange fear mixed with a morbid curiosity. And even a vague sense of responsibility towards the souls trapped within it. I felt isolated with this haunting. Friends and family didn't believe me. They just thought I was having a nervous breakdown. I knew I was dealing with something supernatural and evil. Trapped within a seemingly inanimate old object. I knew I couldn't keep living in fear and being haunted like this. I needed to understand why this mirror was like this, where it came from, and why it was showing me those horrifying deaths. I decided to research the mirror's history. No matter how terrifying it might be. I went back to the antique shop, asking the shopkeeper about the mirror's origin. But he only knew that it was bought from an old estate auction in another area of New Orleans. From a house abandoned after a foreclosure. He didn't know anything about its specific history. I started searching for information about murders or mysterious deaths that had occurred in New Orleans in the past. Especially those that might relate to the details I saw in the mirror, e.g. type of furniture, architecture, location. This was like searching for a needle in a haystack. But desperation kept me from giving up. Parallel to my search, the mirror's disturbances became more intense. Even though covered, the sounds from behind the sheet became louder. Sometimes sounding like someone frantically scratching at the wood or glass surface. The foul smell became stronger. And the cold radiated further throughout the room. Then, I found a small clue. From an online forum specializing in New Orleans crime history. I stumbled upon an old post mentioning a house in the Garden District area, where multiple deaths had occurred over several decades. Not serial killings, but separate tragedies that happened there, yet with an unusual frequency. The post mentioned that this house was once referred to as the House of Deaths, and many of its belongings were auctioned off after the last owner died under unclear circumstances. The antique mirror I bought, it might have come from that house. Knowing the possibility that the mirror came from a place linked to multiple horrifying deaths sent shivers down my spine. Perhaps this mirror wasn't the cause of death, but something that recorded and preserved the final moments of life, of sheer terror. It was a cursed mirror, a gateway to an abyss of death. Discovering the potential bloody history of the mirror triggered a violent reaction from it. The haunting was no longer subtle. It became direct, terrifying, and aimed directly at me. Even when covered, the mirror still seemed capable of projecting its images. I started seeing shadows flitting across other reflective surfaces in the apartment: window panes, TV screen, refrigerator surface. Even when the main mirror was covered, these shadows were blurry, but they carried the shapes of the people I had seen dying in the mirror. Most terrifyingly, the people in the mirror began to interact with me more clearly. When a death image appeared in the mirror, even if just a glimpse in my peripheral vision, the victim's eyes no longer just stared into the void. They looked directly at me. Those terrified faces now also carried anger, resentment, or an unexplainable desperate longing. I started hearing voices from behind the covered mirror. Not clear words, but whispers, moans, pleas, or curses echoing from behind the sheet. It felt like the souls trapped within were trying to communicate with me, or wanted to drag me into their world. One night, when frantic scratching and guttural growls erupted from behind the covered mirror, I mustered all my courage and lifted the sheet slightly at one corner. Instead of seeing the normal mirror surface, I saw a moving image. It was a face, distorted by fear and pain, pressed against the glass surface from the inside. Its eyes looked directly into mine, and its mouth was wide open as if trying to scream something. The scene around the face was dark, chaotic, filled with shadows and horror. I immediately dropped the sheet, backed away, trembling uncontrollably. The mirror wasn't just a recorder of tragedy anymore. It was a portal, and the thing inside was trying to get out, or wanted to pull me in. That confrontation pushed everything to the limit. The mirror was no longer patient. It wanted me. It wanted me to experience the horror it had recorded. The days that followed were a continuous nightmare. Whether covered or not, the death images appeared constantly in every reflective surface. Screams, struggles, moans echoed throughout the apartment. The cold and foul smell were overwhelming, making it hard to breathe. The mirror seemed to be trying to break the final barrier. The covered mirror surface vibrated slightly, emitting strange sounds. I felt an invisible pull drawing me towards it. The people in the mirror, their eyes wide open, looked at me with a sickening hunger. One night, standing away from the mirror, I caught a glimpse of my own reflection in it. But it was wrong. My face was pale, my eyes filled with fear. And behind me was the shape of another person, blurry, reaching out towards me. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't live with this thing anymore. I couldn't let it continue to haunt me and possibly try to pull me into its world. With a frantic determination born from absolute terror, I lunged towards the mirror. I used all my strength, pushing the mirror hard to the floor. A shattering crash echoed as the glass hit the floor, breaking into hundreds of small pieces. Along with the crash came a horrifying, mournful scream, full of anger and pain, echoing throughout the apartment, then falling silent. The cold and the foul smell also gradually dissipated. I stood there, gasping for breath, looking at the shattered glass on the floor. On each small piece of glass, I caught a glimpse of my distorted reflection. And somewhere, mixed with my image, were horrified eyes, faces twisted in pain. I carefully cleaned up the broken glass, wrapping them in layers and discarding them far away. I had destroyed the mirror, but I knew I hadn't completely escaped it. The images of those horrifying deaths were burned into my mind, like scars in my eyes. I am still haunted by reflective surfaces. Sometimes, when looking into a mirror, I still catch a glimpse of something else besides my own image, a shadow flitting by. A scared pair of eyes. My sleep is disturbed by nightmares of dark rooms and horrifying faces looking at me from the other side of the glass. The mirror was destroyed, but what it showed me, the pain it contained, will haunt me forever. I am the witness, and the burden of those deaths, of those trapped souls, has now become a part of my life. This story is true. It is what I experienced with that antique mirror. It taught me that some old objects don't just carry history, but also carry tragedies and trapped souls. If the story of the mirror that reflects death sent chills down your spine, if you believe in true horror, cursed objects, and souls bound by death, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the next videos. There are many other horrifying secrets waiting to be uncovered.